book of, 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult. That's the sole purpose of this meeting. At this time, I'd like to call the meeting to order. Begin by a moment of silence. After the moment of silence, Mr. Sigmund will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise and join me in a moment of silence. Members of the board, you've received the agenda for tonight's meeting. I've been advised by Dr. Stover that there are no adjustments from the central staff. So at this time, I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I make the motion that we do the agenda as presented.
Motion is on the floor.
I second.
And a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all members in favor of approving the agenda as presented, please raise your hand. And that is unanimous. This time, I will turn the meeting over to our board attorney, Ms. Crystal Davis, to conduct our public hearing.
Excuse me. I got it. At this time, the board will convene a public hearing. Signed up may address the board about matters that are on this agenda. The only matter on this agenda is the appeal by Michelle Teague of the decision relating to the book 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult. We have, I think, 24 people that have signed up to speak about this book. Again, the public comments are limited to this book and this hearing. So the way that this will proceed is that I will call your name. We have a court reporter here, and I will ask that when you come to the podium that you state your name and that you also spell your name, and that is for her benefit. We discussed that prior to. We have lots of different spellings these days and pronunciations. In addition, I would remind you all that the board has experienced many disrespectful comments being made at board meetings. The board has unanimously determined that it will not tolerate disrespectful comments, and we ask you not only to limit your public comments to 3 minutes. There will be a timer up there you see in the right-hand corner, but also to be respectful not only to other members in the room, but also to speakers, and that you not jeer and clap and make noises after, before, or during another person's speech at any time during this meeting. Be sure and watch the clock. Anything else that you want to add, Mr. Chairman?
No, ma'am.
Okay. With that said, the first person that is on the sign-up sheet is Pastor Dean Hart. And if you'll approach and again state your name and spell and then.
All right. My name is Pastor Dean Hart. Do I need to spell pastor? PastorDeanHart. Okay. You let me know when we already had, clock already started? Okay. Well, then I'm just going to go ahead. I'll probably talk for just a little bit. Galatians chapter 6, verse 7. tells us, be not deceived. God is not mocked. Whatsoever man soweth, that shall he also reap. And so I know what you're going to do. You're getting ready to talk to me here, but I got to tell you that I believe that up front, I just want all of you to know we don't dislike any of you. As a matter of fact, my prayer is that everybody in this room would come to know the Lord as their Savior. You say, well, I don't believe that there is a Lord. Well, that's fine. You don't have to. The Bible teaches us that God has enlarged hell. Hell has enlarged itself so that those that don't want to believe, well, that's where they're going to go. I wanted to say that here tonight that the result of a changed life is that you begin to walk in.
Comments are restricted to.
This pertains to that, sir. Okay. Well, I will if you'll give me an opportunity. Okay. This pertains to that because the results of a changed life, and I'll just talk to you directly if you would like. The result of a changed life is that you stay away from these books, these pornographic books, this filth that goes and is, we're all over our schools, all over our school system. And you say, and people say all the time, and say, well, we're taking them out. Or they might say, well, we're censoring speech, or we're banning books. That is far from it. And we're misquoted every single time we turn around by the news media, by you all, that we have stated that we want to ban books. And that's not true. That is absolutely the last thing that we want to do. What we want to do is make sure that we protect the minds of our children. Our children get access to this field, and you all seem to not mind it. And I got to tell you that that's so not surprising as far as that goes, but by people that have run as Republican and then turned around and actually are liberal Democrats. But let me just go ahead and tell you this, that what we have here is we have a situation where that people use all kinds of statements, and you're fine. And I know you're ready for me to shut up, but what bothers me so much is the fact that you all, this board right here, not all of you, but this board seems to want these books in our public schools. And yet we have education that needs to be given, read, write, arithmetic, all these things. And here's the thing. Where does that come into play at? I know that 9/11, people have mentioned 9/11, and they've talked about that. Truthfully, that's really sad there that you can only know about the books from 9/11.
Again, moving forward, the purpose of this public hearing is a hearing on the book, 19 minutes. So your comments need to pertain to that book, or they are out of order. So moving forward.
All right, it's Betsy Cromer, Betsy Cromer. You're welcome. I'm not sure why we're still here discussing porn, and it should not be allowed in the schools. Why the board would allow 19 minutes, which has porn, sexual inappropriate, drug use, alcohol use, self-harm, suicide, bullying, racism in this book. And some of you compare this garbage to the Bible. I don't get it. I want to know if some of this book is maybe in one of the ebooks. Is it allowed? The students, if they have an account, can get it without even checking a book out. Why are we handing these tools like this book to mimic maybe a school shooting in this? We trust you with our children from kindergarten and up. And we want to know how you confuse them. You look for ways to maybe trip them up with books like this. You want to control their destiny, which God already has declared to them. When you go behind our backs and use this book, 19, which should be off the shelf, we see how you've been plotting and scheming against us, our families, and our kids. And you're mistaken. You're mistaken if you think for 1 minute we will stand by and let this keep going on. We are not going away. We are just getting warmed up. And let me explain a layman's term, maybe. Education is not knowing that Hitler killed 6 million Jews. No. Education is understanding how millions of ordinary people were brainwashed that it was required to do so. This book, 19 Minutes, is destroying our children's minds, and our hands, your hands, are covered with their blood. It will be your fault one day when one of our children's rape, commit suicide, act as a school shooter, die of an overdose because you are handing them tools. The Bible's a tool, and into their hands, and we ask them to be removed. We will continue to stand together like we did on March 5th and be guarded in the full armor of God, which will bring us victory again. Thank you.
I'm going to ask one more time, expressions of approval or disapproval, unless directed by the chair, are out of order. And the next time it happens, I'll clear this meeting of everybody except the speakers signed up. We are not here for a shouting match. You're here for your input as public comment. We thank you for that. We're not going to have any theatrics. Please, sir.
There's murmuring back here, we cannot hear.
I can hear clearly.
You're luckier than me, sir.
All right, Michelle Longaberger.
Before we go on, Mr. Chairman, can I ask for a point of clarification from the last speaker? I'd like to know who compared 19 minutes to the Bible.
Excuse me?
You don't have to answer.
Any back and forth from the board to speakers will come from the chair. The board member asked for a clarification of who compared 19 minutes to the Bible. You made that comment. She was just wanting that clarification.
I would like to speak up on that. I would like to speak up on that.
For the record, Madam Court Reporter, Ms. Cromer did respond, I don't know if you heard it, that she did not know.
I would like to speak on that if I could.
No, ma'am.
Why? Why can't Michelle speak?
You let the other
Our next speaker.
Speak for you. Why don't you let her speak for you, sir?
Sir, if you would like to familiarize yourself with our procedures for public hearing, I invite you to do so, but comments from the board per discussion are not in order at this time.
You just let the guy behind me speak. You just let another board member speak through you. Why don't you let
Would you
him-
escort this gentleman out of the meeting, please?
That's so ridiculous. That's so ridiculous. Trying to silence our freedom of speech. You want me to go to?
I
You're
do.
a representative.
I do.
Yeah, that's all right.
Deputies, escort them from the building, please. Thank you. I'm sorry, ma'am. It's your turn.
Excuse me. Sure. Michelle, Michelle, Longaberger, Lonaberger. Thank you for giving me a moment to speak. I know y'all are all serving the positions you serve on because I know and I believe that you do care for the children in our community. And I thank you for being public servants and serving. The book, 19 Minutes, I don't have a lot of time to read, but when I heard this book mentioned, I read some excerpts online to see what everything was about with this book. I am one that believes, see for yourself what's in there. Don't just take what you hear, see it for yourself. And to be very honest, I couldn't finish reading a lot of the excerpts because of the graphic nature that is contained in this book. I worked in a grocery store right out of high school to be able to pay for my own college. When I worked there, they had catalogs, magazines, and things of all kinds of natures that different people would be interested in. There were explicit magazines, and they were contained in plastic wrap, so young eyes couldn't see. Because we all understand certain things, we need to preserve childhood. Things are going to be known as it comes in life. you're only a child for so long. Children can only handle certain things at certain ages. There's been studies done. There's plenty of that online. I'm sure y'all have heard of all of that. I don't need to get into that. But the simple fact that concerns me with this book, others, of course, that are there, but with this book in specific, Disney couldn't make a movie out of this book and use the language that is in this book. Nobody that I have heard is asking for book to be banned. Nobody's asking for books to be burned or any of that nature. But simply, this book is not appropriate for minors. Disney wouldn't make a movie of it using that language because it doesn't fit the wholesome nature that Disney has become known for. Parents can take a child into the movie theater to see a movie from Disney, and they have the hope and the expectation to be able to relax a little bit, that they don't have to worry about what's going to be in front of their child with language or certain things that they're just not quite at age to handle yet. You can't have the content, the language of this book published on the front page of a newspaper. It's obscene. It's not arguing a thought that should be banned. It's not arguing any of that. It's just simply what is appropriate for children. That's why we have our school to teach them. And you don't teach what's in high school to kindergartners. They're not ready. You don't want to display certain language and certain graphic nature. According to the definition, it does contain pornography. And it is a concern. And I believe that y'all do want to do what's right for the kids. I thank you for that. And I do hope that this book is removed. It's pretty rough reading. You couldn't put it on the radio. They bleep certain things. In fact, they just couldn't air it because of the graphic nature. You can't have it on regular television on certain hours. That's why they have those hours, because they know kids could have a chance to see it. So that is what we're asking. Please have this book removed. That way it's not in the eyes of the kids. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lineberger.
The next, and I'm having trouble reading, is Paul Neal.
You
didn't
vote him out.
And Ron Beatty.
My name is Ron Beatty, R-O-N B-A-I-T-Y. I want to go back and move up to this book this evening. In 1645, our forefathers came to the conclusion that somebody or something would fill the children's minds with some kind of material. And they wanted to make sure that the material that the children got in their minds was material that would help mature these people to be outstanding adults. So they passed a law in the year 1645 in our nation, and it was called the Old Satan Deluder Law. It happened to be one of the first laws passed in this country. And in that bill, they said, we want to make sure that all of the children know how to read and write. So they taught them, first of all, the alphabet. And then when they learned the alphabet, they put in their hands a Bible to learn to read out of. They said, we want their minds filled with the scriptures. We want their hearts filled with the scriptures. Again, because somebody or something will control their thought life. They never had the understanding that the day would ever dawn in America when young people would have their minds filled with this garbage. That's all it is. I noticed this afternoon as this was downloaded, they have this book contains sexual activities, sexual nudity, profanity, derogatory terms, violence, controversial social and political commentary, controversial religious commentary, alternate sexualities, hate, abortion, and suicide. We said a few minutes ago, one nation under God. I don't know how we can associate the holiness of God that we talk about here in our pledge, and at the same time try to infiltrate the minds of our young people with this kind of material. I think it's important that we understand what pornography is. What is the definition of pornography? It comes from the word porneia. It's the depiction of sexually explicit content designed to sexually arouse the reader or the viewer. Porneia or pornography is a catch-all word for any filth or perversion. Porneia involves looking at explicit content with the intent to derive sexual pleasure or gratification. If that's what you're trying to teach the kids here in this school, you've missed the mark, but that's what it is. I don't think any of you could go to the library, pull this book off the shelf and say to the people around you, let's bow our heads while I thank God for this material we're about to read. It don't go together.
Thank you, Mr. Beatty.
Okay, do I need to spell okay. Madeline is Madelyn, and then Beisler is Beisler. Am I good? Okay. Hi, I'm Madeline Beisler. I'm a 17-year-old student at St. Stephen's High School and soon to be graduate who can vote. I have spoken before, but this book is especially important to me. While preparing to speak to you today, I listened to Jodi Picoult's story behind 19 Minutes on her website. She was inspired to write this book by an act of bullying she witnessed in her kindergarten son's classroom. Anti-bullying programs have been prevalent since the Columbine school shooting occurred on April 20th, 1999. In fact, my Honors English 4 class just participated in one of these programs. We started by reading the novel Columbine by Dave Cullen. This novel, which shows the signs of school shooters, helped educate not only us, but the whole school as we participated in Say Something Week. Say Something Week, which is sponsored by the Sandy Hook Foundation, encourages people to stand up for others when they see bullying and speak to a trusted adult. Each group in my class came up with a project that aligns with the views of Say Something Week. As Picoult was writing her novel, she researched Columbine by traveling to Littleton, Colorado, interviewing a deputy sheriff, and listening to the basement tapes made by the shooters. 19 Minutes is not a novel made to show explicit sex scenes. It is a novel made to showcase the effects of bullying upon adolescent minds. This novel proves to teenagers that we can make a difference by standing up for other people and saying something when we see bullying. Everyone should be an upstander as long as bullying exists. Picoult has had numerous students contact her to say that her book is the reason they didn't bring a gun to school because they knew they were not the only ones who felt alone and sectioned off from others. If 19 Minutes can save the life of one child by showcasing the dangers of bullying and school shootings, then why should you even have a thought in your mind about restricting it in our school system? School shootings are not limited to a certain demographic. They can occur anywhere, and this book can make a difference. Thank you.
I knew you'd get my last name right. Yeah, you just said it. So my name is Elizabeth Beisler, Elizabeth, Beisler, same as my child, Beisler, and I'm a St. Stephen's High School parent of 2 amazing students, if I should say. So I'm actually here on behalf of the author, Jodi Picoult, and I'm reading a letter that is from her to everyone in this room, including the board. My name is Jodi Picoult. I am a best-selling author of more than 25 novels, one of which, 19 Minutes, has been challenged by school boards across the U.S., including Catawba, North Carolina. It is not the first time my books have been challenged, nor will it be the last. The books being banned at school districts in this county tend to fall into 3 categories: those with sexual content, those written by BIPOC authors, those written by LGBTQ authors. In most school districts where my book has been challenged, those doing the challenging have not even read the books. That is the case here. They have been provided with a list of titles from others in other communities who express concern for what children are being exposed to. Make no mistake, what children are being exposed to are ideas and lives different from their own, which creates compassion and empathy. Or, in some cases, children are being exposed to ideas and lives exactly like their own, which provides representation and validity and a sense of belonging. In other cases, kids are given the tools to understand and process a very challenging world. The books of these lists The books on these lists are not salacious or revolutionary. They're just the kind of books that help kids learn to think for themselves, which is the point of an educational system, and which is also terrifying to a certain small subset of Americans right now. This is not the first time historically we have seen bans and challenges to literature. Because of that, we can say with historical accuracy that this is the first page of a fascist playbook. If you want to control the thoughts of a nation, you start by controlling what they read. For those of you in the audience rolling your eyes, consider some of the books most commonly challenged right now were written to chronicle and explore moments in history where being different led to systemic discrimination. We can think of a few, right? That's my own words. The thinking of those who promote book bans and challenges is that by removing these books, we get to rewrite and sanitize history. It doesn't work that way. Instead, what we know categorically is that kids who feel marginalized and read books with characters that are like themselves wind up feeling less marginalized. Kids who have never encountered someone different from them get to do so in a safe space of reading a book, and it lends to understanding. It leads to that. Books bridge divides between people. Book bans create them. I want to read that again. Books, thank you.
I have a quick question for the chair.
Mr. Settleman.
Did we not pass a while back that people couldn't read from other people? They had to present for themselves. They couldn't read something from someone else.
Well, she said that she was representing the author.
I read something that was given to me from the author, so I still can read it, I suppose,
Same
because I
thing.
read it.
Thank you for that point of clarification, Mr. Settlemeyer.
This is coming from the same person that they said their daughter learned about 9/11 from the book. That's ridiculous.
Thank you, sir.
I'll leave it.
Dr. Kimberly Turk, KIMBERLYTURK, and I was intending to finish the letter that Jodi sent for the board. In the inability to finish that letter, which was a great letter and was written directly for this board to be heard from the author who could not travel here tonight, I will instead read tweets that the author has posted online for the public. Here's a real world experience I had in 2007 when 19 Minutes was published.
Your thoughts originally about 19 minutes long to be consistent with board policy.
All right. So when she was touring, and the book had been published 10 years ago, this book was curriculum reading at different high schools. High schools were actually reading this book as part of their curriculum. At one of these high schools, students, after she spoke, were given an opportunity to ask the author questions. One of these young men came up and said, "I don't have a question, but I wanted to let you know that I had a weapon and I had a plan and I was going to shoot this school until I read your book. And I chose not to do that." She said the principal sitting beside her went absolutely pale white. Another student said that she'd spent her life in a wheelchair and that she thought that no one understood her. And reading this book let her know that she was not alone. This book has value to children. This book has value in a world where I still practice every year for a school lockdown, where I've had to spend time worrying about which children in my classroom might bring a weapon to school because they're angry. This book has value for our students. Thank you very much.
Let's allow our visitors to leave, please.
You let them testify after the book, why? But use your own words, to kick out the good man.
Josh Nixon.
Good evening. My name is Josh Nixon, JoshNixon. I just want to say that I did take the time to read this book, and I've read all of the books that were recently challenged. I am a reader, and so I wanted to, find out for myself. And just to follow up on some things that were said, I do believe that there's some bitter irony in removing, suppressing, challenging, whatever word you want to use for a book, in which a student feels that the struggles they're facing are things that have to be kept secret and hidden. And I think there's some irony in wanting to remove a book that deals with some of those struggles. And the result in the book was death and heartbreak. And I'd further like to say that I've sat through a number of these meetings, and I've been profoundly dismayed at meetings like the one that we're having tonight. And I do believe that talking about books and their content is important. I'm including 19 minutes, but I feel that we're often distracted from the work that we should be doing and making the jobs of educators more difficult, and not adding anything meaningful in discussions about books like the one tonight to the lives and learning of our students. And I'm concerned about the road that we're traveling down when we have meetings about books like this, and that they will lead to harm for the students and the families of Catawba County. I hope that I'm wrong, but I'm afraid that I'm not. Thank you.
My name is Michael McLamb, Michael McLamb. Chair Taylor, members of the board, here we are again, another special meeting at taxpayer our expense to ban a book that has not been read or understood by the complainant. You can look no further than the incomplete form challenging the work. This performance is all for someone's poorly formed opinion. I implore you to ask the complainant if she's read the book in its entirety. Ask her questions about the small stuff, the details that only those who have read the book would know. 19 minutes is not pornography. It is not, in the words of Book Looks, sexually explicit nudity or obscene. It is not in the curriculum, nor is it a tool of wickedness. No student, teacher, parent is forced to read it. Parents and guardians have complete and ultimate control over what books their child can access in libraries. This control even extends to coursework in the classroom. Why is this not enough? Every meeting of this board is a display of an agenda at work. I think several members of this board have no interest in improving education. Count the votes against the dual language immersion program just last month. White English-speaking Christian schools, Christian nationalism, destroy public education. That, I think, is the agenda. 3 board members endorsed Michelle Morrow for North Carolina Superintendent of Public Instruction, a candidate with no experience in education, none, and worse yet, one who called. My apologies, Mr. Chair. Banning books is wrong. Censoring speech is wrong. Suppressing ideas is wrong. This entire exercise over 2 years is disgusting, and it's wrong. Thank you.
FLAVIA, FLAVIA, DIETRICH. Flavia Dietrich. So once again, as was said before, we are here at taxpayers' expense. And once again, we are treated to the reasons why a book like 19 Minutes should be banned, because it's accused of being pornographic, of having sexually explicit language. It appears that those who want to ban the book know nothing about the Miller test, know nothing about the fact that the book has to be beyond sexual explicit. It has to be done for the purpose of titillating, and then it could be considered pornography. But that's not what the speakers here are complaining about. They apparently have no qualms about coming to you with arguments based exclusively on their beliefs, religious beliefs, and calling something pornographic, which they have not read, admittedly, or read excerpts of. And speaking of not being able to read what the author of the book has said, I don't think that people should be allowed to stand up here and parrot what they read on Book Looks, which is exactly what one of the speakers did, reading directly from what that website says, the website that is maintained, created by the Moms for Liberty. It floors me that the people who most want this book removed, a book that treats with the important theme of bullying and school shooting, are the same people who want to erase the existence of LGBT kids. These are the same people. They're the same people who have rallies where they raffle guns, AR-15s. So clearly, the intent is not to protect children at all. Besides the fact that it isn't children reading these books, it's teenagers, children in high school, not little children who watch Disney movies. This is not PG-13. This is a high school book. I shouldn't be surprised at the hypocrisy, but it's always shocking to see what people have to say. Thank you.
May I speak just a minute in my defense, please?
Are you signed up to speak?
No, I just want to defend myself. I listened to 3 minutes of her slander us, not anything about the book.
It's Brenda, Brenda, Sigmon. And I am a retired Catawba County educator. I've spent 30 years, most of it in Catawba County, teaching language arts and social studies. In the book 19 Minutes, which is being discussed tonight, a young person who has been extensively bullied takes a gun into his school and commits a mass shooting. 19 Minutes is fiction, but this same type of situation has happened in reality all too often. Personally, I think 19 Minutes is an excellent source for us to see what bullying can do and can lead to. Another tragic aspect of bullying is the bullied child taking his or her own life, and this does happen. Children who are between or about 10% of these children are between the ages of 7 and 10. The majority of them are between the ages of 11 and 14. And I'll just read you a couple. A 13-year-old girl who wanted to be a lawyer was called ugly and taunted as a loser. She took her own life. A 13-year-old introverted Louisiana girl who craved friendship was targeted for nearly everything. Her glasses, her braces, her clothes, her body shape, and the list goes on. And we know that this bullying happens every single day. Another aspect of bullying is, or the children committing suicide, is bereaved parents suing school systems for not adequately protecting their children. And in some of these cases, parents have been awarded large sums of money into the millions of dollars. Books are being removed from shelves under the guise of protecting children. But if we really, really are serious about child protection, wouldn't our time, our money, our energy, our resources be better used to make sure no child in any of our schools is bullied, and making sure that bad guys with guns can't get into our schools? Books don't kill children.
Donna, can I? Donna, can I? Miss Knight is not here or responding. April Moss.
Good evening. I'm April Moss, APRILMOSS,
and I'm a blood-bought believer of the Lord Jesus Christ, and I'm here on his behalf. I'm also here on the behalf of all the children that are represented here in this room tonight. I am sad to say that we have a lot of people who are atheists in this room tonight, and as a blood-bought believer of the Lord Jesus Christ, that really concerns me more than anything. I know that there are Christians, at least according to the biographies on the website for the Board of Education, what I see is Christians that are represented.
Speak to the mayor and see the floor against 19 minutes.
Absolutely. 19 minutes is pornographic trash. It talks about abortions. It describes in explicit detail sexual things that are happening. It takes in vain the name of the Lord Jesus Christ in the same sentence that one of the guys calls somebody a effing, I don't even say it, but you can use your imagination. So as Christians on the board, I believe that we are being misled. I believe that we have been lied to because all the Christians aren't voting against the books that do not represent the Lord Jesus Christ. Now, I'm not your judge. We're all guilty of sin. But as you can see, we have atheists in this room. They're going to hell. And if we keep these books in the school system, our children are headed that way too. Okay? So I am imploring you to please vote your beliefs that you state on your biography. We have one person here that is represented that went to the Dallas Theological Seminary. We have one person here that is represented that was a Bible school teacher. You cannot represent yourselves as Christians and vote the pornographic trash in here. 19 minutes pornographic trash in here, Mr. Taylor. You can't. These children.
It's not a forum about the faith or the politics of this board.
I'm sorry, but it is. You've misrepresented us, and you threw 2 preachers out, and that disgusts me, and it disgusts everybody. But these people are going to hell because they are being misrepresented by this board of 3 people. Amen.
Hi, I'm Peg Heights, spelled P-E-G-H-I-T-E-S. The kids in my neighborhood go to Clyde Campbell, Arndt, and St. Stephen's High School. Just a little tad, I'm just going to throw this in here impromptu. 40 years a pastor's wife, spent my whole life in the church. Okay, let me talk about 19 minutes. I have admired the writing of Jodi Picoult for a long, long time as an avid reader. Her amazing ability to take a social problem and then swirl a story together that addresses it is really impressive. It's entertaining, it grasps the reader, and it makes the point. She has tackled, and I've read, books about racial divides, disability barriers, and when Jodi takes on a topic, I can always count on her that her novel is going to challenge me. So it's not surprising that 19 minutes calls us all to look deeper into the cause of school shootings. This book is a gift to our children. It's a written window into the reality that they face every day in our country. It's a chance to consider the role that bullying can play in triggering a child. Is it obscene? What's obscene is what our children face every time they practice another active shooter drill. What's obscene is the level of anxiety and hyper-preparedness that our kids seem doomed to deal with. And it makes me sad to think that their access to this book might be limited. What are we, the adults, so afraid of? Our kids already know what they face. They know it. But what they need, what they desperately need, are tools to deal with the world we have handed them. And this book is one tool for them. Don't take it away.
Mr. Chair? Yes. Would you ask everyone to put their phone on silent, please?
Yes, if you could please just silence your phones. If you want to video what's going on, that is completely acceptable. Just make sure your phones are silenced.
Including Mr. Chair for the board.
Thank you. Yes, that would include all of us.
Jodi Gardner.
Joan E. Gardner, Joanegardner. This is a graph of school shootings. It starts up here with Columbine, and you can follow this circle and see how school shootings have increased. 19 Minutes is perhaps the most important book we have covered so far because it is timely and realistic. I know my grandchild, who is in Catawba County schools, could understand and get insight from this book. You saw my chart. It shows the incidences of school shootings since Columbine. They have drastically increased. What was so effective about this book is how it humanized all the characters and did not have a victim-villain simplistic format. Besides covering the complicated backgrounds and intertwining of the villains and victims, it had subplots of teen hierarchy relationships, teen romantic relationships, which can be abusive, as well as insight as to the role adults in positions of authority, from parents to school officials, have in either resolving or ignoring social problems in our schools. Everyone does not have to be a villain for tragedy to occur. Ignorance will suffice. It was a spot-on book for today. The perpetrator was followed from early childhood to his demise in the book. He was bright, sensitive, and both a victim and a villain. Lifelong bullying led him to nihilism and violence. Why do we need this book in Catawba County? Do you remember a meeting of this board during the 22-23 school year when a family, mother and father and two boys, came to lodge a complaint that their older middle school son was being bullied for being Black? The mother is a school teacher and a children's author. The older son was an honor student as well as a star football and basketball player for his school. Why was he bullied? Was it for being outstanding while being Black? Was it jealousy? Just plain racism? The issue was not resolved, and they have pulled that child out of our school system. Shame on us. It is our loss. Every child in our system from middle school up needs to read this book. To ban it is to deny reality and represents a failure to address today's acute problems.
Is not responding or is not here. Kevin Sparks.
I also had the committee's report, which I implore you each to read.
Kevin Sparks, Kevinsparks. Good evening, Counselor, Dr. Stover, Mr. Chairman. I'm here to speak on 19 minutes, and yet I have to object to the very nature of this hearing. The hearing is meant to be a hearing on the appeal of the committee, on the ruling of the committee on the book 19 Minutes. As such, I applaud it. I find the hearing itself to be strongly biased towards the viewpoint of the challenger in its very structure. You'll be hearing more about that later, I assure you. The committee ruled quite strongly that this book is not pornography. Pornography in our land of laws, we are a country of laws, is defined by the Miller test. The committee spoke directly to the non-pornographic nature of this book. If the author had used any less detail, the reader would not have realized a character was being sexually assaulted by her boyfriend. This scene is in no way erotic or written to arouse someone sexually. It is not a pornographic book. If this is a challenge to the committee decision, which part of that decision does the challenger find objectionable? Pornography is well defined. The book is not pornographic. The challenger refers to sexual content as the only matter in their complaint, the only two words in the complaint. Why is the committee's ruling not sufficient? In Beaufort, South Carolina, a group drawn from the community met to consider a number of books challenged and attempting to be banned from their schools. Why are we unable to trust in the integrity of our policy, in the judgment of our own community, as the folks in Beaufort were able to trust in theirs? More recently, the challenger and their friends have indicated that controversial religious commentary and alternate sexualities are promoted in this book. If that is the issue, then let's discuss that. If you have read it, then please point out where you find such issues and let's talk about it. Simply saying, I want this book gone, should be treated as irrelevant to any serious discussion about education. Otherwise, the argument seems to be that parental choice actually means one person's choice. If we're to remove any book that any person finds objectionable on some grounds, why do we have a library at all? Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
LynnDorfman. I'm Lynn Dorfman, a Catawba County taxpayer, a former App State instructor. I have degrees in child development and library science, and I'm a mother, just a mom. But there's no just about being a parent. Parenting is perhaps the most important and hardest job. I'm glad to see Board Member Teague recovered from her February malady, and that this board, while behind the schedule this board member orchestrated, is able to reconvene to deliberate the fate of 19 minutes. The delay worked for me. It gave me time to read the book. What a compelling story. The characters are so real, you feel you know them, the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's a tough topic, but as other speakers have pointed out, it is sadly one that is all too topical. U.S. gun violence is a public health crisis. Guns are the leading cause of death for our nation's youth, according to the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention. Since the horrific mass shooting at Columbine 25 years ago, more than 338,000 students have experienced gun violence at U.S. schools. 338,000. That's twice the population of this county. This book shines a light on this public health crisis and its all too real and tragic consequences. Lives ended, lives upended. Schools should be safe places of learning, not killing fields. Yet the real power of this book is explaining the why of a school shooting. I have never read such a strong depiction of bullies and bullying. Like Matt told Josie in the book, there has to be a we and a they, and we have to show them we are better than they are. Isn't that a tale as old as time? We and they. I'm better than you. Nanny, nanny, boo, boo. After reading 19 minutes, my recommendation as just a mom, this board should ban bullies, not books.
Thank you, Ms. Woodman. The next person is Joshua, and the last name ends in L-A-W, I think.
That's all right. It's hard to pronounce.
I know. If you will let us know how to
No problem.
pronounce it and spell it.
No problem. I'm Joshua Holsclaw. That is Joshua Holsclaw. 19 Minutes is a remarkable novel about the realities of bullying, school shootings, manipulative romantic interests, and the complex dynamics of parent-child relationships. However, this book is not appropriate for minors because of several explanatory passages pertaining to sex and sexuality, despite their relevance to the overarching message. If we were to read aloud these excerpts or some excerpts from the book during a school assembly, even in their context, the phones in the county office would be ringing off the hook the next day with irate parents because of the obscene nature. So why should the school system provide students access to such material to take home and read in private? There are ways of discussing sexuality and sex, including rape, without going into detail that the author does. Regrettably, the author crosses that line. Furthermore, this book contains words and activities that even I, as a professional in my job, can't discuss. A significant part of school is molding children and young adults into professionals so they may excel in the workforce. If work professionals are restricted from discussing these topics, especially to the same degree of detail in the workforce, students shouldn't have access to them through a school-funded library. The responsibility of the board in making this decision to keep, restrict, or remove this book from the shelves is to separate fact from feeling and render a verdict based on objective truth. The truth is that 19 Minutes is more suitable for adult audiences and should therefore be removed from our school libraries. I will leave you with a quote from the author herself from the book on page 404. "It's fascinating, really," King said, "because a 20-year-old might be psychologically capable of making an informed decision, but a 17-year-old won't be. To read this book, it requires an informed decision. And as the author admitted herself through her character, that a young minor cannot make that decision." Thank you very much.
Clayton Mullis.
Name's Clayton Mullis, Claytonmullis. Good evening, board. I want to thank you for your time. And on the topic of the book of 19 Minutes, it is the reality that we face today as a country is what is in this book. And many people have spoken about that tonight. Different sides of the aisles, different opinions. But one thing nobody has mentioned tonight is that doesn't have to be the norm. And I think there's a way in life that you can have these conversations differently. I'm a generation, 2 generations from the generation that was the greatest generation that ever walked the face of this earth, in my opinion. Generation of my grandparents. This book talks about homosexuality, abortion, school shootings. And again, we accept that as reality. But that doesn't have to be the case. Where does it stem from? I wouldn't use this book as an example in Sunday school at church to prove that point. Yes, these are difficult topics, and I'll be the first to tell you, I don't think I could handle some of these topics, how to address them, because I don't have that experience. But one thing I can tell you is the bigger cause and the bigger tool, a bigger tool than this book that ever can be, is a parent. And so many of our parents in this country today do not step up to the plate to be a parent. I come from a family that my parents were divorced out at a young age. But my parents were responsible and worked together to educate the 3 children in our family. And they put us first, and they understood that. Not every child has that case in this county. And it's sad. But we cannot accept the things that are in this book, that they are reality and the norm. And that's what we have failed to do. And that's what I'm afraid this book does. And it opens up the doors to other things and other agendas. And it needs to be focused on education and elevating our education to the best in the world. And I thank you for your time. Thank you.
Aaron Schumeyer.
Oh, you got it right this second.
I
Very
can
good
spell
job.
it with the song.
I know.
Oh my. So Erin Schermeyer, ErinSchuermeyer. So I had a whole other speech prepared, but I've kind of thrown it out the window based off of what's been said in here. And since it apparently matters, I feel compelled to say that I am a Christian to the point where I teach Sunday school at my church. I'm on Altar Guild, and I was just elected to our vestry. I am highly involved in my church. Yet I think this book should stay in our schools for multiple reasons. I was in middle school when Columbine happened. I have grown up in the reality of school shootings. While I haven't, as a student, participated in a lockdown drill, I have at an outreach to an elementary school. I was in a school library when kindergartners had to hide from the possible intruder. We went into a closet and I experienced children crying because they were terrified. The one thing that helped is that one of those students decided that we were hiding from the velociraptors. That kept these children's terror at bay because they'd seen Jurassic Park. They knew how to hide from velociraptors. In no world should we expect kindergartners or any of our students to have to hide from a school shooter. And 19 minutes shows us exactly how some people decide to become school shooters. They have experienced such extreme bullying from the time they were in kindergarten all the way up through high school. I myself was a victim of bullying through much of school. Luckily, I was blind to a lot of it as it was happening, and it's only in looking back that I can see it. But based off of how severe my bullying was, and especially my bullying at church, I could very easily have become a school shooter. And that's disturbing. Luckily, I had the experience reading books, none of which at that point were like 19 minutes, but reading books that made me feel not alone, that made me feel represented, that gave me hope that all of that badness wasn't going to stay in our society, that wasn't all I had to look forward to. So I applaud everyone for wanting to take care of our students. But the books that we're talking about banning are not books that are in elementary schools. They're generally not even books that are in middle schools. These are books that are in high schools. Part of our job as educators is to make sure our students are well prepared for life. That's teaching reading, writing, arithmetic. It's also teaching civics. My little sister didn't know that you had to register to vote. She graduated high school 6 years after I did. That is unacceptable. We also need to teach the world how it is. We can't put on blinders. Our students aren't going to have them in the real world. Thank you.
Tim Hickok.
My name's
Tim Haithcock, Timhaithcock. I come here tonight not as your enemy, but I do come here to talk about the book 19 Minutes, as we've already heard what it includes: school shootings, sexual parts to the book, violence. But what it really boils down to in 19 Minutes as a book, it's about our children. A book can motivate you to do good. It can help you understand your surrounding environment, what's going on. It can lift you up and make you feel like it's going to get better. But then again, like the book, The Catcher, I believe it's the Catcher in the Rye, it enticed a man to kill another man just simply through reading that book. It's about our children. And we, a school board, as you make up, it's our responsibility to make sure that we know where that dropping off level is: G, PG, R, X. And it's our responsibility to make sure that we are allowing books that are good quality books to remain in our library. But also, it's our responsibility to make sure that we don't have books that promote negative things. The book 19 Minutes, someone could read that and go in the worst way, the worst direction. Whereas you might have another person read that book and somehow go the other way. But we're basically talking about our generation of children and the world that they're going into. It's coming apart at a very rapid state. Any one of you who look on the news at night and see what our world is, it's really chaos. And it's your responsibility, our responsibility. And as that gentleman said, as parents, yes, I was a dictator to my children. If they brought home a book that was full of pornography, full of stuff that was just negative, no good, it ain't gonna stay in my house. Thank you. Thank you.
Hello, Teresa Reichard. It's TERESAREICHARD. Excuse me. Thank you for allowing us to come speak again tonight. Speaking of the book, 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult. It is set in 2007, and it's about a mass shooting, as we all know at this point. The main characters in this book, Peter and Josie, were once friends that drifted apart. She became the popular girl in school. He remained the one that got bullied. That and other factors led him to commit the school shooting. And that scenario is just so well known in real life. I don't understand why we don't want our children reading about this book, because it is about things that they do encounter. And I mean, hopefully it won't ever happen here, but doesn't everybody think it'll never happen there? It deals with many themes: friendship, the social hierarchy in high school, bullying, sexual violence. Everybody keeps talking about the sex in this book. The sex in this book is basically date rape. It's not glorifying or titillating or anything like that. These things happen. Our kids know about these things, and they should know about them. They should know how to try to prevent this sort of thing, not to let themselves get into a situation where that could even happen to them. There were so many signs in this book that Peter was heading for a psychotic break, but his parents, the school, and his friend Josie all failed to recognize the signs and to take any action to help him. I feel that not only should this book be allowed to stay in the library, I think it should be required reading with vigorous class discussions as to what he went through and what everybody else's roles were in this tragedy. I think it would lead to empathy and understanding. The way it was written is just so believable and so familiar. It's been 50 years since I've been in high school almost, and these students were still, I felt like they were my friends, my people I knew. Some things never change. Sorry, I lost my way a little bit. But I think this should be taught in schools because I think it would teach people how things that they do, their actions in harming others, can harm other people, how to build empathy, and to better see the signs that a student is struggling and reaching their breaking point. It would be great if all parents read this book as well, because the parents in the book also didn't see the signs. Could reading this book prevent the next Sandy Hook, the next Parkland, the next Uvalde? I don't know. But as I believe was stated earlier, it's at least prevented one. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, board members, that concludes the public comment section of our public hearing.
Members of the board, having heard the speakers, this time the next item on our agenda is to go through the actual appeals process. What's the pleasure of the board? Do you want to go directly, or would you like to take a break? All right. So again, I don't think we need a motion in a second. We will take let's adjourn or re-adjourn at 20 after. And at that time, we'll start the actual appeals process. Thank you. At this time, we will call the meeting back to order. We will, from this point forward, hear the actual hearing on the books. Couple of reminders for procedure for those in the audience. This is not a dialogue. Both sides will be presented. The board will hear both sides of the argument. And after that is heard, if the board so chooses, they may go into special session after that, or if there is no closed session, excuse me, if there is no closed session, we would go directly to discussion and deliberations. So at this point, I will recognize our board attorney, Crystal Davis, who will begin the public hearing regarding the challenge book.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, the Catawba County Board of Education will convene the board hearing regarding the appeal of a challenged book. It is entitled in the matter of Michelle Teague's appeal to the Catawba County Board of Education from district level decisions to retain the following decision to retain the following resource in the high school media centers. And that resource is 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult, and that's Picoult. At this time, I will present a statement of the case. For the record, these exhibits that each board member has a copy of are labeled, and I will go through those and offer those into evidence or place those into evidence for consideration by the board. The first is Exhibit 1, which is the Catawba County Board of Education request for reconsideration of educational services, which was completed by Michelle Teague. She dated that on March 22nd, 2022. In addition, that has it's a total of 5 pages. She has 3 pages of attachments with that. The next item for the record is Exhibit number 2, which consists of a 6 pages, and those 6 pages consist of a letter dated October 10th, 2023 to Miss Michelle Teague, and it is from the it is dated October 10th, 2023, and it is from the High School Book Challenge Committee. In addition, attached to that is the actual High School Book Challenge Committee's CCS Reconsideration Committee report, along with its own attachments. The next exhibit is Exhibit number 3. Which consists of 14 pages. It is the Catawba County Board of Education request for review of a building level recommendation that was completed by Michelle Teague on 11/7/2023. It contains attachments by her, which includes excerpts from the book. In addition, there is Exhibit number 4, which consists of 2 pages. It is a letter dated January 17th, 2024, which is a review by or is a letter from the District Book Challenge Committee with their decision with regard to Miss Teague's appeal. The next is Exhibit 5. Exhibit 5 is, consists of (17 pages) and is it consists of an email from Michelle Teague to the Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum Instruction, Lee Miller, wherein she requests appeal the district's decision regarding the challenge of 19 minutes to the Catawba County Board of Education. That is the statement of the case. As I said, the court reporter has a copy of each of those. There's been no objection by any board member that those be included into evidence. At this time, I would just take a minute to remind you, we've done this several times before, that it is incumbent upon this board to conduct an impartial hearing with regard to the appeal of this book challenge to the board. I have explained to the board, I won't go through everything before, I think you're well aware, that there is some indication, some arguments for both sides of whether the case of Crump versus Board of Education applies in this matter regarding impartial hearings and whether it requires the recusal of any board member. As I've told you before, boards cannot compel a board member to recuse themselves from a hearing. The board members can object to a person conducting themselves in an unfair and impartial manner. There is some question about whether Crump versus Board of Education applies in this case. The argument is that it applies in a quasi-judicial situation. And again, there's argument that this is a quasi-judicial situation. And there's argument that this is simply a matter of policy decisions for the board. So not policies in terms of our policies, but policy decisions in terms of how the board wishes to conduct itself. So in the past, we have had motions at this point in time made by board members. I don't know if the board wants to take this time to make any motions. If so, you'll need to speak up. It's not my position to require those or not. Okay, hearing none, the next item of business for the board is to hear the complainant's the complainant's statement of her case and her arguments to the board for removing the book. So at this time, we'll hear from Michelle Teague in her opportunity to be heard.
Is there a way I guess, well, you can hear me okay?
You're good, yeah.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay. Okay. I'm Michelle Teague, and I am here to appeal 19 Minutes by Jodi Picoult. What I would like to say, well, first of all, what I would like to do is I would like to read the letter or the email that I had sent regarding my decision to appeal this book. Okay, and I would like to say I'm disappointed by the decision to keep this book. Excuse me?
All the members of the board have the letter.
Right. Okay, but this is still my
The-
hearing. This is still my hearing. Can I still?
It is, but again, there's no
All due
need to
respect.
read copies of material and evidence that we have.
Okay,
and
but
have
that's
had a
part,
chance to
that's part
review
of my
ahead of
hearing,
time.
though. That's part of my hearing, as, to stand up here and say what I have here. I mean, I'm not sure what you want me to say.
Assume we've all read it and then go where you would go from that point.
Okay, well, okay. As far as that goes, you have every bit of the evidence. I mean, what am I standing up here for? Why am I standing up here?
The public don't have it.
I'm asking a
Mr.
question.
Chairman.
You are to present the facts of 19 minutes as you see them, the
Right.
salient facts. You
Exactly.
presented a lot of exculpatory evidence. What we need is your opinion on why 19 minutes should not be retained
Exactly.
in our
And
libraries.
that is what I'm doing, because I am reading this right here, and I'm going into the reasons why I believe that this book should be removed.
So
from
do you,
the
do you intend to read all of the pages of all 5 exhibits?
No, sir.
Then why this one?
I'm not sure why I am not allowed to read. I have been able to read this every time. Why are we having an issue now?
Mr. Chairman, may I just ask for a point of clarification?
Yes.
Is the hearing between Ms. Teague and the board or Ms. Teague and the public?
This is an appeal to the board. The public was invited because it is an open meeting, one, and to make comments. But so present the evidence to us. We have the email. And I have read it, and I assume all the other board members have done so. So you can dispense with that.
Okay. Well, this is the information that I have written, and some of the issues that I feel like this book entails. So I'll just go this route. Okay, and this is why I feel like teenagers should not be reading 19 minutes, especially in high school. 19 minutes contains sexual references, profanity, and violence, including bullying and suicide within the book. Mature content, 19 minutes deals with heavy themes such as bullying, violence, and teen suicide. These topics can be intense for young readers, potentially causing emotional distress or anxiety. It has graphic scenes. The book contains graphic descriptions of violent acts, including a school shooting. Exposure to such vivid depictions of violence can be disturbing and not suitable for students or teenagers. It can also cause a teenager to desensitize the violence. Exposure to graphic descriptions of a school shooting with such violence may desensitize young readers to the real-life consequences of such acts and lead them to perceive violence as a solution or a way to gain attention. I feel like this book could also glorify tragedy. Some argue that the book unintentionally glorifies the tragic event by focusing on the shooter's perspective. Young readers might romanticize or empathize with the character responsible for the violence. There also could be copycat behavior. While it's unlikely that reading a book alone would directly lead to violent behavior, there is a risk of copycat behavior. Vulnerable individuals might be influenced by the detailed portrayal of a school shooting. The sexual content, there are sexual references and discussions about sexual relationships in the novel. Many parents feel uncomfortable with teenagers encountering explicit content at a young age. Language and profanity. The book includes profanity and strong language. Exposure to such language is not appropriate for adolescents. This book contains the F-bomb 47 times. Parental concerns. Parents have expressed reservations about their kids reading this book. There are concerns this book could negatively influence their teenagers' perception of school relationships and life in general. The emotional impact, the emotional weight of the story can be overwhelming. Teenagers are still developing and emotionally and exposure to intense themes may affect their mental well-being. Lack of contextual understanding. Teenagers may lack the life experience and emotional maturity to fully understand the complexities of the situations depicted in the book. Lack of guidance. Without proper guidance and discussion, teenagers may interpret or struggle to process the complex issues presented in this book. Teenagers could start accepting violence, bullying, or self-harm as a part of their reality. I feel like there could be alternate choices. Other books could be made available that address similar themes, but in a more age-appropriate manner. Encouraging teenagers to explore literature that aligns better with their emotional maturity might be a wiser choice. In summary, while 19 Minutes offers valuable insights into important societal issues, it's essential to consider the emotional readiness and maturity of teenage readers before recommending it to them. Open communication between parents, educators, and teens is crucial to ensure a responsible approach to reading material. I also feel like, as the school board, it must strike a balance between respecting community values, protecting students' rights, and ensuring access to diverse literature. Legal challenges may arise if decisions disproportionately favor one interest over another. Foreseeability and duty of care. Schools have a duty of care to protect students from foreseeable harm. If it can be demonstrated that the book directly influenced a student's violent actions, legal claims might arise. Plaintiffs could argue that the school should have foreseen the risk of harm based on the book's content and taken preventative measures. Also, I feel like negligent claims. Parents or victims of a school shooting might bring negligent claims against the school district. They could argue that the school failed to adequately assess the risk associated with the book, failed to provide proper supervision, or failed to take reasonable steps to prevent harm. So with that said, I actually had taken a webinar on bullying, and I feel that some of the things that were said, that as a school, we could be held liable for some of the things if a student did actually have the opposite effect of actually could actually have a school shooting. I mean, if they went the other way, instead of getting some type of effect from the book to actually go against that of doing a school shooting, they could do just the opposite. There is some things in this book that are sexually explicit. And actually the sexual explicitness is on page 313. And I'm not sure, in my opinion, I don't see how anybody can determine whether somebody's going to be aroused or not sexually when they read this. I mean, in my opinion, they could be, especially a young boy or a teenager of some sort. The things that I have an issue with this book as well is that some of the ideas that were involved in this book, there was like teen pregnancy, there was unprotected sex, there was teen pregnancy. As far as that goes, the girl was trying to figure out how to end her pregnancy with natural remedies. Some things in the book just gave certain ideas that I don't think that our teenagers should be subjected to necessarily. Also with the school shooting, there was things going on with that. I mean, you're actually, I understand the bullying concept, but at the same time, I feel like these kids could, on one hand, some people could say, and as they did, that it could help. It could help, them see things in a different light and not want to be a school shooter. On the other hand, it could be a trigger. It could be a trigger. So, I mean, it could go either way, and that's just the nature of the beast. It could go either way. As far as that's a sexual explicit, we have on here, I'm going to read this because it's here, and this was part of my issue with this book was the sexually explicit part of this book. This is part of the date rape, which is very unacceptable and disturbing. And I have daughters, I have granddaughters, and this is one of the reasons why I actually appealed this book or challenged this book, is because I do have kids. And I know that even when I think back of when my kids were teenagers, I would not want my kids reading this book. I was a very involved parent. I'm an involved grandparent. And this book is not satisfactory to me as far as what we should be offering our kids in school. And that's why I'm going to go ahead and let you hear this on page 313 of this. He pinned her hands over her head and ground his hips against hers. She could feel his erection hot against her stomach. It wasn't the way it normally was, but Josie had to admit that it was exciting. She couldn't remember ever feeling so heavy as if her heart were beating between her legs. She clawed at Matt's back to bring him closer. Yeah, he groaned, and he pushed her thighs apart. And then suddenly Matt was inside her, pumping so hard that she scooted backward on the carpet, burning the backs of her legs. Wait, Josie said, trying to roll away from beneath him, but he clamped his hand over her mouth and drove harder and harder until Josie felt him come. Semen, sticky and hot, pulled the carpet beneath her. They were on the floor of the living room, and they were nearly naked. Josie could taste beer on Matt's breath, but she must have tasted like that too. They both drunk a few at Drew's, not enough to get wasted, but buzzed, enough so that Matt's hands seemed to be all over her at once, so that his skin set fire to hers. She'd been floating along pleasantly in a haze of the familiar. Yes, Matt had kissed her, one short one, then a longer, hungry kiss, as his hand worked open the clasp on her bra. She lay lazy, spread beneath him like a feast, as he pulled off her jeans. But then, instead of doing what usually came next, Matt reared over her. Again, he kissed her so hard that it hurt. She said, pushing at him. Relax, Matt murmured, and then he sank his teeth into her shoulder. He pinned her hands over her head and ground his hips against hers. She could feel his erection hot against her stomach. It wasn't the way it normally was, but Josie had to admit that it was exciting. She couldn't remember ever feeling so heavy as if her heart were beating between her legs.
You already read that
Yes,
passage.
I did, and that is the thing about this. That is unsatisfactory for any child to read. I'm embarrassed to even have to read it here. Our kids shouldn't be reading this filth, and that's how I feel about it. And that concludes my appeal for this book.
Thank you. Are there questions from the board for Ms. Teague? If you could,
Ms. Teague, you mentioned that parents have opposed to this. Is there any reason you didn't include copies of that opposition in your evidence?
The feedback that I have gotten from parents, it's the feedback that I have received from parents that have opposition to this.
Do you have copies of that to share with us? We'd like to see that as well.
No, but you've heard the audience give their opposition to this book. That should conclude it.
I think we heard both sides, actually.
Mm-hmm.
yes.
I didn't hear, I'm sorry, recorder. I did not hear your opposition to what the district committee's decision was. I think the hearing tonight has been pointed out is that you're appealing their decision. What part of their decision do you not agree with? You've told us you don't want the book in our libraries, but what part of the decision that the district committee gave us do you not agree with? What part of their reasoning?
I don't agree with any of it.
You feel like they misapplied the Miller test, for instance?
Well, I mean, it's still, I think the Miller test comes down to the point where it can be questionable as far as what's considered arousal and what's not arousal. There's a lot of things that can be left for interpretation.
Mr. Abernathy.
Yes, Ms. Teague, according to Exhibit 1,
I don't think I have Exhibit 1 up here, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, let me read it to you. Exhibit 1, number 1, did you read, view, listen to the entire resource?
Okay.
Is it correct?
Okay.
Is it correct that you've said no? Is that correct?
Okay, I think we had this discussion one other time at the book reading, and when I first submitted some of these, I had not read the books. So, but then later on, I did read the books, and so I have read the books.
So then again, if you recall the discussion prior, then that would be true then? Would you say that the Washington Post misquoted you when you stated that you had read every one of the books that you've challenged? And according to that article, you said you checked each of those books out at the local library. So is that a misquote?
I do not recall saying that I checked out every single book at the local library. I did read the books after I had submitted the first set of appeals.
But you'd not read this book when you challenged it.
Yes, I did.
No, it says on here you've not read it.
No. Okay, you're trying to trip me up.
No, I'm not
Yes,
trying to
you
trick
are.
you up.
Yes,
I
you
am
are.
just
You were
trying-
trying to trip me up. I did not read this book when I first submitted the first appeal. Ever since then, I have went through these books and I have read them. And that was my statement to the Washington Post that I have read these books.
But you stated in here you had not read it when you
I
challenged
just
it.
told you, I just explained it. What I have read, I did not read it on when I first challenged the books. I have went back through and I have read the books. I don't know how much more clearer I can get with you, Mr. Abernathy.
Okay, we just wanted to be clear because
And I don't
according to
know what
that
this-
article,
I'm not sure
according
what
to the
that has to
article, you
do.
had not read the book. That you had read the book
You're
and now you
just
said
you're
you
just
did.
trying you're just trying to trip me up
No,
and
I'm
try
not.
to catch me in something that's not the truth. It's ridiculous.
In response to the parents are concerned, I have asked for the number of high school students in Catawba County schools. There's approximately 5,108 students in our high school. Out of those students, there's only one student whose parents have blocked them from reading these books. So I'm not saying parents aren't concerned, but if they are, they're not stepping up.
And I feel like some of the parents are still not aware of what they can do to keep their children from reading the books. I still don't think we have been doing marketing. We've been doing a good job, but we can still do better.
Excuse me, Dr. Barnett.
Ms. Tigg, in your one email to Mr. Taylor that you asked for us to have this appeal, this hearing, this is a quote, you said there are students at the high school level who aren't mature enough to read this book. Am I to take from that statement that there are some students who are mature enough to read it?
I think, Ms. Barnett, you would know the answer to that question because you've been a teacher and a principal for as long as I can remember. My thing is that there are different maturity levels of students.
Exactly.
And there are students that are not as mature as other students.
Who do you think would decide that?
Well, I'm sure that, teachers and parents, I'm sure that there's people that can determine the maturity level. Anybody can, I guess, rate the maturity level of a child.
Would be a parent's choice in that case?
It's always about parents. No doubt about it. Parents are always in charge of their children. They should be. The issue that I have is there's certain things as far as educators that also think that they're in charge of the kids. It comes back to the parents, bottom line.
I ask why you get to choose for other parents.
I am the voice for the parents that do not want this trash in our school. That's why I was elected to this position as a board member.
Mr. Chair, I one additional question. Again, on Exhibit 1 that you submitted, number 5 says, what is good about the resource? And your answer was it's not applicable. Why in a challenge would that question not be applicable? That you could either cite that there was nothing, but to say not applicable, why would you think it's not applicable?
My thing is that this book, I didn't feel like it was applicable at the time. The reason why I was appealing the book is because it's not satisfactory, in my opinion, to be in the school system.
And I had one point, Ms. Teague, and I thank you for sharing your opinion, because that's why we're here to hear that. But we have 11 singular pages which have been downloaded from booklook.org, which is a national group with a particular political slant, with a canned and ready-made sort of appeal du jour that you can just download and introduce into any community. Why did you choose that source?
Because I feel like they're credible. The reason why they're credible is just they have a committee that goes through each book, and they read them, and they find the things that are inappropriate in the books. There's other outlets out there that are also, they might not say, they have their own standard of what their organization stands for, just like other organizations have what they stand for. They do book summaries. They just happen to do, they go out there and they find the things that might be inappropriate for kids in the books.
And I would just add a point. We've got one of those committees in this county too that uses the perspective of the residents of Catawba County rather than bringing content in from a national organization. I just think that's worth noting in this discussion. Are there other questions?
Yes, Mr. Chair, do we know how many times this book's been checked out and how long has it been in our library?
It's been checked out 136 times.
Yeah, that data was sent to us.
Mr. Chair, actually, I can answer that. I've got it in my notes. At Bunker Hill High School, it's been checked out 11 times. It was put on the shelf in 2009. That's till 2022. Franti Ford is checked out 15 times from 2009 to 2018. Maiden High School, 6 times from 2017 to 2018. And St. Stephen's High School, 104 from 2008 to 2011, and it was checked out 1 time in 2022.
Thank you, Ms. Vice Chair. Yes, Dr. Barnett.
Just like to ask Ms. Tig also, if you tell us which character in the book you found the most offensive.
Most offensive. Probably Matt, the one that committed the date rape. One of them. I don't know. I found the whole book offensive. There was several things in there I found offensive.
So the date rape was more than the child who murdered 9 children and
No, I just said that there
injured
was several
19
things.
others.
There was several things in there that were offensive. I find it all offensive. That's why I don't think it's appropriate for it to be in our schools. We could be held liable because if some kids sit there and decided they liked what or was triggered by a shooting from reading this book.
Your biggest concern is the language rather than the bullying and murder.
I'm concerned on all of it. I don't like the book as far as the things that are going on. I think that this book, if it was going to be read, it needed to be post-high school, not in the high school with teenagers and students.
Yet you admit some kids in high school are mature enough for
I did
it.
not say that they were mature enough to read this book on that level. I don't think when you plant seeds or you sit there and you hand over something that's got 47 F-bombs in a book, I just don't think that's appropriate. They can't go in the hall and say those words. So we're just going to hand it to them over privately and let them read it. There's all kinds of things in that book that's not appropriate.
Was there a reason you didn't cite any of the scenes of the school shooting and only chose language, explicit sexually charged language in your presentation?
No, I just said that they had 47 things in there for the F-bomb. I mean, as far as like the shooting, it's violence. It doesn't matter. Either way, it's violence.
Mr. Chairman, could I read one passage from the book?
Yes, ma'am.
And I can provide this to the reporter later in the book, if that's okay. This is on page 241. I think to Mr. Abernathy's point about saying that in your application that there's nothing in the book that had, that there was nothing applicable about it having any purpose or meaning or good, exactly however that's phrased. This is just from a student journal. It doesn't tell who, and as the book goes on, as you know, Ms. Teague, it doesn't tell whose journal this is, but it gives different random journal entries, and this happens to be one of them. And it says, ask a random kid today if she wants to be popular, and she'll tell you no, even if the truth is that if she was in a desert dying of thirst and had the choice between a glass of water and instant popularity, she'd probably choose the latter. See, you can't admit to wanting it because that makes you less cool. To be truly popular, it has to look like it's something you are, when in reality, it's what you make yourself. I wonder if anyone works harder at anything than kids do at being popular. I mean, even air traffic controllers and the President of the United States takes vacations. But look at your average high school student and you'll see who's putting in time 24 hours a day for the length of an entire school year. So how do you crack that inner sanctum? Well, here's the catch. It's not up to you. What's important is what everyone else thinks. It's how you dress, what you eat for lunch, what shows you TiVo, and what music's on your iPod. I've always sort of wondered, though, if everyone else's opinion is what matters, then do you ever really get to have one of your own? And that's just one passage that I think so insightful and empathetic to the true high school experience
And the
in
girl,
2007 and even today.
Right.
And how could you say there's no parts of this book that are worthwhile?
Yeah, understand. And she almost committed suicide. She almost committed suicide.
No, she did not.
I said she almost committed suicide. She took a bunch of pills.
You know what she did at the end?
I know that she actually shot Matt, the guy in the stomach. So, I mean, she had her own demons, and these are the things that I'm saying, that there's for every passage that you might come across, there's just as many that are just not as good. There's bad passages in the book.
I think the good outnumber those.
I don't think so. That's a matter of opinion. You have your opinion, Miss Barnett, and I have mine.
Are there further either questions or points of order?
Now's the time to deliberate and make any comments.
Mr. Chairman?
Well, on the agenda,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah. Do we need, board members, do we need a closed session? What is the pleasure of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, in the face of impartiality, I would like to move that we recuse Ms. Teague from the discussions and vote on 19 minutes.
We have a motion on the floor.
I second that motion.
And a motion and a second. Is there discussion about that motion before we take any further action?
I believe we should let her vote because we have on all the others. I don't see any different tonight. It's one book.
Thank you.
Actually objected to all of them.
Yeah.
Are there other points of discussion relative to the motion?
I guess I don't get to say. Do I get a say in this as well or not?
Well, yes, you're a member of the board, so you would actually get a vote here. All of those in favor of Dr. Barnett's motion to recuse Ms. Teague from voting on this appeal signify by raised hand. And that would be Mr. Taylor, Dr. Barnett, and Mr. Abernathy. All those opposed to this motion signify by raised hand. That is Ms. Richards, Mr. Sigmund, Mr. Settlemyre, and Ms. Teague. The motion fails 4-3. Back to the original question, do we need to consider a closed session, or do we want to proceed straight to deliberations and discussion? Hearing no motion for for closed session, then I would say that we proceed to deliberations. Ms. Teague, thank you for your presentation. You may be seated. And at this time, the board discussions and deliberations on 19 minutes on the exhibits that we have been provided on Ms. Davis' presentation of facts and on Ms. Teague's presentation, and the questions that were asked of her will now take place.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to entertain a motion that we put this book for parents' consent per the Bill of Rights and their Constitution. And as Ms. Teague said, she's doing this for the parents, so why should we take it out of the parents' hands? It should be their decision.
Thank you. There is a motion on the floor to restrict 19 minutes to parent permission. Is there a second to that motion? Hearing none, that motion would then fail for lack of a second. Thank you,
I
Ms.
would like
Teague.
to make a motion to remove this book from the libraries.
Okay, Ms. Teague has put a motion on the floor to remove 19 minutes from the Catawba County Schools libraries. Is there a second?
I second.
There is motion and a second. Discussion on the motion. I would add, and again, this has been alluded to, Dr. Barnett spoke to it, Ms. Teague spoke to it. I think one of our speakers, I believe it was Mr. Beatty, spoke to it about parents. Our parents overwhelmingly, and several times in issues that we have discussed on this board, have indicated that they feel like they need to be the arbiters of what their children do, what they're taught, and what they're exposed to. Our current policy provides them that option. It allows them to flag any book, deny any book. So that already exists. Also, when our parents were surveyed on this, just to remind, over 80% of them did not consider books one of the major issues that they were dealing with. It wasn't moving the needle. So I just wanted to interject that. I agree with Ms. Richards in her motion that I think this is a parent's issue. But so we have a motion and a second. Any further comment?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say I certainly hear Ms. Richards also on the fact that she is coming down on the side of parent rights.
Any others?
On the parents, I'm on the side of parents as well. However, we do have a mixed bag here where I feel that there could be parents on both sides of the aisle. But I just believe that we should remove this book.
Hearing no further comment, I will call the question. The motion and second has been made on the floor to remove 19 minutes from Catawba County School libraries. All in favor of that motion, please signify by raised hand. That is Ms. Teague, Mr. Sigmund, Mr. Settlemyre. All those opposed to that motion signify by raised hand. Mr. Taylor, Ms. Richards, Dr. Barnett, and Mr. Abernathy. That motion fails 4-3. So at this time, we've had essentially motions from opposite sides of the agenda. Are there others to be put forth? Hearing none, if there are no further motions, then the policy that currently exists would stay in place, as I understand it. Council, am I correct? And 19 minutes would remain as an option for parents to allow their children to check out or not, as they see fit. The last thing on our agenda is to schedule a board meeting to submit report. Tell us about that.
We could possibly do it at our April meeting.
Somebody count the, no, it's all days. It includes weekends, sorry. So I don't think it's going to be,
So our April meeting is the 22nd.
right, that. Yeah.
Generally don't count weekends, do we?
Yes, we do.
I thought when
for
we
30, yeah.
started the book challenges, it was 30 days that students were in class.
No, that was for the challenges. For the board to actually return their report,
It has to
it's
be
30 days. Now, the board can move, one of you can make a motion to extend that time and to make it April 26th. Is that what the next 22nd? I'm sorry. It's only 4 days.
I'd like to make a,
I'll make the motion that we extend that to get us to the board meeting, the next regularly scheduled board meeting in April.
Motion's been made to submit the report for approval for this challenge on April 22nd at our regularly scheduled board meeting. That motion is on the floor. And a second. Is it a discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of voting on the challenge report on April 22nd, signify by raising your hand. And that is a unanimous vote.
That works.
And that brings me to our reminder before we consider a motion to adjourn. Our next regularly scheduled meeting will be 22nd of April. 25th of March. Yeah, but, and that is next Monday, third Monday in a row, just parenthetically. I will now entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting. A motion on the floor and a second. All in favor of adjournment, please signify by raising your hand. Board members, thank you. And members of the public, thank you for your attendance and your participation.